Welcome back to Metropole Television. This is Business AM, and we are on to your economic review this morning. Let's therefore pick the bigger issues that we have for you this morning, where Kenya Airways has started discussions with the leasing firms for early resumption to work for a number of aircraft with the intention of converting some of the high-capacity planes to freighters. Now, the move is targeted at cutting costs for the airline operating amid a high drop in passenger numbers in the wake of COVID-19. Alan Kilavuka, the chief executive, said the negotiations have KQ allowed to remove seats in some of the Dreamliner aircraft and convert them into freighters or cargo planes have already begun. Mr. Kilavuka said that the move will help the carrier to use its Boeing 787 aircraft for long-haul cargo services between Africa and other continents. Kenya Airways KQ net loss for the 6 months ended June 2020 has widened by 67.3% to 14.33 billion on account of COVID-19 disruptions that led to the grounding of flights. Now, the airline is also facing heavy criticism from workers' unions and associations on a plan to send home over 1,500 workers as it puts in place a plan for renationalization with hopes for completion in October 2020. Domestic and international flights returned in July and August respectively, but KQ's outlook for the remainder of the year remains depressed. Now, with the airline's chairman, Mr. Joseph, reckoning that the airline is facing reduced demand in passenger business and increased costs due to tighter health and safety measures. Question being this morning, is cargo the only option for the airline? Joining us this morning on our economic review, we are joined by Edward Kusawa, Dr. Mushalule, and Gabriel Mwendwa. Good morning, gentlemen. Edward, let me pick your 2 cents on that. Does it seem that now, during this time that KQ is really trying to figure themselves within the COVID-19 pandemic, that cargo looks to be the only option for them?
Okay, thank you very much. I think let me start by saying that business investment is a major driver for productivity and growth, and no country wants to see productivity fall. So, for Kenya Airways and for the aviation industry, I think if they want to keep afloat, they want to be profitable, or at least they want to turn around their losses by proving that they could do something. And therefore, if the only option right now is to turn into cargo, then that's basically the main thing. If you look at all the risks that have been imposed by this pandemic, it calls for different thinking and different strategies. So in my view, I think, looking for alternative strategies, alternative channels of making profits is something to welcome.
Pretty much. All right. Now, just before I let you go, Edward Kusawa, on that KQ issue as well. Well, there's this plan now for KQ to actually get done away with 1,500 workers in their renationalization drive. It looks as if they want to start all over again. Is there a way that they can get hold of these workers now?
Basically, I mean, if you look at global trends and what is happening to that very industry across the world, what has really happened, and from what we are studying and what is being revealed right now, is that government economic responses, stimulus programs that are directed to such industries have been coming through. Now, in the absence of where there's government intervention, then you do not anticipate to see a growth in that sector, basically because, even though we have fuel or global oil prices drop, then we do not see an uptake of that industry as much as it were because of the pandemic. So the only way for the airline or the aviation industry to retain its employees is if there's a government stimulus program that is directed towards saving the workers from being retrenched. Otherwise, if you look at the market forces of demand and supply, then it doesn't really work out if there's no intervention. There's no demand and therefore there's no supply. And if there's no supply, it means there's very little low business activity. And if there's low business activity, it means then, therefore, that you can only but lay off workers since there's no revenues coming out from that sector.
Pretty much. Now, Gabriel, I just want us to listen to the bite from the head of Cargo, and that's why I'm going to bring you in shortly. Let's listen into what the head of Cargo Business Unit at KQ had to say, and then after that, we come back and talk about it.
KQ is already deploying a number of Dreamliners into Europe, Middle East, and the Far East to cover the capacity gap. And additionally, we'll be removing seats on 2 of our Dreamliners. This process should be completed by early October, and this will help us to really capture the demand, the winter peak, which is a period between 1st October and Christmas time. So we are looking forward to really contributing towards incremental capacity. For this winter season, we project the shortfall will be about 20 to 25%.
Fantastic. We can actually hear him say that the shortfall for this period will be 20 to 25%, which therefore makes me bring in Gabriel this morning. Now, Gabriel, I mean, from that perspective, we can actually see where the direction for KQ is right now. We all do understand that the airline and the airline industry and the aviation sector in general is doing bad right now. I mean, the ones who received the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic. But now, how back do you think that the renationalization drive from KQ has been set back by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, thank you. Let me first put this into perspective by bringing in some numbers. I mean, if you look at the cargo business for KQ, it only generated approximately 9 billion shillings out of a 127 billion shilling revenue. So that tells you how minute it is compared to, passenger flights. So to benchmark on it as the only thing that could bring them back is very tough. Even if they were to double or triple it, it's still a drop in the ocean compared to the previous revenues or whatever they generate from passengers. Now, that said, to your question on the nationalization, I'll echo the words of Edward, where he said, at this point in time, previously we've criticized the government for continuously supporting industries and companies that were not profitable in the long run. But in this time, the global trend is actually for governments to actually subsidize some of these sectors. But then if you look at KQ currently, even as at the end of last year, they were, as a business, they were in a negative equity position. So if I was to look at it from a transaction point of view, I don't know where to start because the business already has no value. If you take all its liabilities and assets, there's nothing. So I don't know what the government would be taking. In short, it would be the taxpayer biting on losses to the tune of 17 billion. But going with the trend of what we've seen, whereby today we see the KPA, Kenya Ports and Kenya Pipeline, as well as the railway institution being merged, I think that's safe. It's safe to say that's the strategy of the government. Merge some loss-making entities with some profitable ones, and then end up with a profitable entity. You just mask the losses of one entity with the profits of another. Because I think if the Kenya Airports Authorities report, they say they have 1.3 trillion in assets. So it's a good entity to merge it with. Just mask the losses. But the nationalization discussion is a tough one to have at this point in time, and even previously it was still a tough one. So based on those numbers, even if the cargo, as you mentioned, even if they double, triple, it's still going to be very tough. The employee cost, to just jump on that, is about 17 billion again. So you can imagine cargo alone has to double at least to just meet employee costs, and we've not even covered the cost of getting the plane off the ground. So unless passengers come back, I don't know about KQ.
I like the picture that you're painting this morning, Gabriel, but I want to take you back again. I mean, there is a deadline, as we do know from Treasury, that they have to complete this renationalization drive by October. That's the last that we have around that. But then they give us their half-year results. You could actually see that they've gone into 14B in losses. Will that make Treasury go back and say, well, we didn't foresee COVID when we're talking about this nationalization drive? And you can actually see how the government is now stressed of the money also because of COVID-19. do we expect this negotiation to continue? And I want to take you back again just before bringing Dr. Mshelule on this as well to weigh in on this. Mikosh, the former CEO, came in and said it's as simple as merging the balance sheet for KA and KQ. Then after that, you're pretty much done and dusted with it. If they take that drive, is it going to be very hard now with these losses occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic?
I find it hard to see the synergies between these two entities. And I mean, to just go to your question, I mean, either way, whether it's before or after COVID, the government was going to take up the loss. Yeah, there was a loss that the government had to bite. So as long as they were willing to take it before, I don't see why, from the point of view of government, why they would not still be willing to take it up now. And the challenge is, if they don't, what does it mean for the recovery of the aviation industry in the country? I mean, the KQ has been positioned as the pride of Kenya and Africa. So there's a big risk in terms of the picture of government. It's not a private transaction. It's a sort of a government agenda that we need to keep KQ alive. And we have airlines that are struggling more than KQ, I have to say, although KQ could do better. But as long as the government was willing to bite the losses previously, it's just that the loss has now increased slightly. But I think, like I said, from what they've done with KPA, KPC, and the Railways Agency, I believe they'll still go ahead with this. About the deadline, it's neither here or there. I mean, it's government to government, so they can push it, they can stick to it. It's really up to them. Yeah.
Pretty much. Now, Dr. Mshelule, I just want to also bring you in on this issue, just as we try to understand the position that KQ now finds themselves in as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, they are facing a lot of fire from associations and some of the bodies that the pilots and the workers' unions are actually in it. Now, we do know that 1,500 have to go. Some of them have already gone, but it looks as if that for this to be successful, 1,500 more have to go. Those are the numbers that we have here in the studio this morning. Is there a way, since we are talking about the government taking over KQ as their personal project, is there a way they can hold on to them and say, yes, let's restart with this 1,500?
Okay. Thank you for your concern. Before even I respond to the issue of the laying of stars, I think also I had some concern on the first issue in terms of the cargo airlines, whereby I think Gabriel has explained very well, because the cargo doesn't bring a lot of money compared to the passengers. And also, when you're talking about that, maybe the deadlines that is there, that is the government has put across to these airlines, sometimes, okay, I can say these deadlines are not biblical. They can be adjusted because it's government to government relationship, okay? So, and also as a government, that's what we say, as a government, we need to put in mind that we need to have what we call emergency response plan in our budget. So such kind of things, they should be addressed if we had such kind of thing, such a kind of a plan. Unless maybe people just do their budgeting, have because of their interest, because of what, it doesn't come out well as a country. And that's why sometimes we need to have some scholars, some economists to guide people to do the right thing, okay? Because if you have a good emergency plan, response plan, such kind of scenarios, if even they incur, at least there will be minimum mitigation or some option. Okay, relying on the cargo only, I can say no, because also the passenger issue, also things are coming out clearly, things are doing well, whereby you're seeing now the flattening. Yesterday when you're watching the news, say that the number of the COVID issues are going down a bit. So with time, the passengers business is going to boom. And also, it's also the opportunity for the airlines also to maximize on issues like food industry within them. They should open up their minds and come up with other substitutes so that they can be going, so that they cannot incur such kind of challenges. Also, they can do what you call, also they can maximize on the package tours. They can maximize also the airline credits there to some of their loyal passengers, they're there. And also they can maximize on insurance. So if somebody's saying, if you're thinking about only the cargo as a country, then it's worse. It means that you are undermining the economies that we are having in the country, like Kenya, and also the managers that we are having there. That's what I'm saying. In any kind of decisions, we need to involve all these people. Apart from only the leadership with the politicians, also we need to have the economists so they can make the right decision at the right time, at the right moment. On the issues of laying off staffs, I think for the airlines, also I've said the most important thing is engagement, employee engagement. That's a human resource act. You need to engage your employees. Just laying off, right now, most of the airline staffs, some of them they have committed suicide because of what is happening in the layoff. But if you engage your employers, you're going to have a procedural way of doing things. Okay, putting in mind also you have the labor laws, because right now you lay off somebody, you find yourself in court. And when you're going to court also, there are some payments to be done. You're not sure if you're going to win the case or the procedure that you used. So the government should also be very careful. And also the Ministry of Transport is also should be very careful on some of the decisions they are making in terms of the laying of staffs. So they can even have some option like unpaid leaves, or maybe also they can have what you call the work-life balances, whereby they can say instead of working 5 days in a week, we can allow to work 2 days, and we compensate depending on the situation that we are in, we are facing in, we are looking for other alternative, and also the government can push on the airlines
Pretty
because
much.
it's the government property.
Yes. All right. Now, Kusawa,
Yes.
just so that we can sort of conclude on this conversation this morning, the issue of laying off of staff is a big issue at KQ, and some of the cases they have right now sort of stem from laying off of staff. Now, let's say, yes, you have a plan maybe to come back later on as a bigger airline. Couldn't you take the same route that we've seen other airlines take? Sort of do not lay off employees, explain to them the situation on the ground. We can't hold you right now, but we have hope that with the nationalization drive, we're going to come back to business again. Can they be on longer unpaid leave as we try figure the airline back into business?
I think basically that is the strategy that most companies normally tell their employees when they want to lay them off, is that once their business environment starts improving, then we are going to recall you. But then let me just say something. Let me just say that, for the sustainability of our aviation industry, it's not just a one-stop issue. It's a holistic kind of thing. I mean, you have to look at the whole business environment in our country and whether we are able to attract businesses, first of all, to start. I think if you look at where aviation industry is really coming down, it's not just because of the inefficiencies that KQ is having, but basically other factors that support the aviation industry. If the business environment in our country is not going to support the aviation industry, then definitely we are going to see a drop and a decrease in business activity as far as the whole economy is concerned. So from where I sit, I think, yes, companies come up with those kind of strategies where they say once the environment starts improving, we are going to recall you back to the operations. But then it all depends, it all depends with not just the aviation, they're all interrelated industries. I mean, our agriculture has to be seen to be doing well. Our manufacturing has to be seen to do well so that these subsectors can support the aviation industry. It's not a standalone industry. I mean, and so long as these other sectors are not performing, then we'll see our aviation industry going down.
Pretty much. All right, gentlemen, I beg that we take a short break right now. But once we come back, now we do know that the banks are been operating in the post-cap rate regime. But our question is, we haven't seen the banks have this flexibility to price their facilities because of this tough stance that the CBK has taken on the lending rates in the country. Now, since we do know they've taken a big hit as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, question is going to be post-COVID-19, will the banks be allowed this flexibility to ask for more once they give us that money, once we come back here on Business AM?